Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the medium frequency.
Good
So,
evening.
hi. So, tonight we have a very special guest. His name is Father Sebastiaan. He's well known worldwide. I have known him for a few years, and he is a Fangsmith and runs the Endless Night Balls and is an author. So I'm looking forward to talking with him. How are you doing tonight, Reverend Hesperus?
I am fantastic and grateful to be here. Excited to talk to a living legend in the vampire community.
Indeed. Speaking of which, it looks like he's here. So let's go ahead and bring him on up.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Greetings.
how are you doing this evening?
Just enjoying the sundown.
That's good. Thank you so much for being willing to be on our show. This is Reverend Hesperus, my co-host.
Greetings,
Um,
Reverend.
mhm. So we have some fun questions for you. Um, Reverend Hesperus, would you like to start with a question?
Oh, certainly. Thank you. Good evening, Father Sebastian. First of all, it's an honor to have you with us. I was curious. You are, of course, an author, a fangsmith, a creator in general in the community. I was wondering what you hope your legacy overall to be for future generations of the community.
That the vampire is seen in its positive context,
Mm,
that the improvement of the individual succeeds either through fangs or celebrating an event or through the black veils. That's what I would love to see
mm.
more than anything. A community that is strong and unified in its goals and is beautiful as the vampire should be in darkness.
Mm.
So
Th-
you are going to New Orleans, which is going to be awesome. For the New Orleans Paracon, what makes it the perfect home from your point of view for the Paracon?
Well, the producers of the Paracon are very, very good people, and they're passionate about what they do. And what I'd like to see is a bunch of events in New Orleans, not just mine, all coordinating and collaborating to make New Orleans a better city. And I'm looking forward to the vampire panel and the ghost hunts. And I think that New Orleans is the perfect backdrop for a Paracon. I think it's going to be a wonderful weekend, and it's going to add a dimension to the city that it hasn't had before.
Awesome. Hesperus, do you have something else you'd like to ask?
Oh, certainly. Father Sebastian, you mentioned you envision a future for the community that is more unified in its vision of its own future. Uh, what are your thoughts on the growing efforts to include more space in the community for adjacent communities, including otherkin, Therian, vampire or blood magicians, and other dark magic practitioners?
I think that what is important to be aware of is that the night kind, as we call it, is something that has been a term I never used. But the great diversity of the vampire community should also welcome others because there are Therians, there are witches, there are other kin that are also vampires. and hospitality is a vampire virtue, and to include them is, as long as there's no minors, there's no breaking the law, and there's no blood drinking in my events, I think that the door is open to anybody that wants to come and enjoy themselves at my events or any other event.
Well,
So the vampire community is being always magical, but becoming more magical as time goes on. And I think that the diversity will share experiences with people that are keeping an open mind, but respecting each other's teachings. There's many traditions of vampirism besides the standard 3 vampires that we know: Sang, Sai, and Lifestyle. There's Keprians, there's Asaka, there's Temple of the Vampire, there's the House of the Dreaming, there's everything. And I envisioned it when I first started the vampire community, where I came into the vampire community and there was nothing there except LARPing and a couple of cult orders like Temple of the Vampire and the Order of the Vampire, which were very secretive. I've always envisioned a magical side to the vampire community of kind of vampire witches. And I think that it's important to be aware that not everybody's going to have the same opinion of you. But as long as you follow those 3 rules: no children, no minors, no blood drinking in the venues, we keep things safe. And what I mean by no blood drinking in the venues is keep that stuff private. And it's not for something that is extremely sacred and should be done with sacredness and not trivialized to a party game. So Therians and witches and occultists and black swans have always been welcome at Endless Night events. And we want to set an example for that for other people and other groups.
excellent. Thank you so much.
What are some of the hopes that you have that people come to the different events that you do, think about and have that's long lasting thought wise after they leave your events?
What I want people to do is, when they come to Endless Nights events, I want to create a sense of fellowship, of community, of experience that is a shared experience. And that's why Ben and Lex from Vamp Fangs have taken up the mantle of running the Boston and Salem Vampire Balls, because they're setting a really good example for the vampire community and other communities as well. Endless Night is a business, and that is something that we are very forward on. But our business is making sure that people have fellowship and really good atmosphere and an incredible experience that they want to go and tell their friends and come back to. Dressing up is part of the ritual, and getting in costume is part of the ritual. And I think that's really, really a magical experience that people can have, and sharing with each other. I want to create a dream where people can come.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, you have been doing fangsmithing for a long time. For people that don't know the story of how you got into fangsmithing or what you love about, could you share a little bit with us about that?
Well, I like to say I'm at my best when I make fangs, because I'm interacting with the person and I'm putting them through something that transforms their life. And what's really cool about that is the fangs do 4 things. Okay, they're a mask, so it's like putting on a mask, a social tool between you and other people. And second, it's a magic trick. Third, it's a connection to your primal nature. And fourth, it's a sex toy. Everybody wants to kiss with fangs on. So I started making fangs back in 1994 when I wanted to create an experience for me and my mom on Christmas Day. And I sat my mom down on Christmas Day 1994 and I made her fangs after training with the prosthodontist for over a year. And that has been something that has been really, really, really a part of my persona and a part of my passion for the vampire community is to bring fangs into the forefront. And they're a very big social tool. Because when you go to a bar, you go out, you can wear fangs with anything. You can wear fangs with a gym suit. You can wear fangs in a tuxedo. You can wear fangs in your wedding dress. You can wear fangs in a bathing suit. You can wear fangs going to the gym. And the transformative nature of fangs is something that has been really a passion for me. So I ritualized the fang experience to make it fun and exciting. Now, a lot of people call me a cult leader because of my fang ritual, but that is something that is pretty funny because what I do is I have the people go like this and they repeat after me, by the power of Sebastiaan, I will not eat with my fangs on. I will not sleep with my fangs on. I can smoke and drink with my fangs on, and I promise not to look in the mirror until I get permission. Then they got to do rock and roll where they hold their fingers and they hold their lids up like this. So I can make sure I make their fangs. It's all practical and people love it. I've had 20 people do it at the same time that I made fangs for. There's a video of me in Denver where I'm doing the oath with a new person and they can't stop laughing. And humor, I think, is the most powerful tool of healing after music.
I agree. I remember when you made my fangs, and we went through that process, and it was like learning how to talk with fangs on. Um, but it's definitely very empowering to have that experience. To have any sets made by you has always been tons of fun. So, Hesperus, do you have some questions you want to ask?
Oh, sure. Father Sebastiaan, you mentioned the transformative effect of custom fangs. Would you consider yourself part of the forefront of body modification, where it intersects with spiritual self-empowerment?
That can be described, but I keep it as basic as possible for most people. Okay, each individual takes on their own interpretation of what the fangs mean to them. But what's important to be aware of is that they are transformative, but they're a body mod that you can remove. You can take them off, you can hide them under your tongue, you can put them back on, at least the fangs that I make. And I started in the body mod scene because the goth scene, believe it or not, in the 1990s rejected the vampire community. I remember when I first got into the vampire community back in 1992, I would go to the goth clubs and I'd be wearing my, I didn't have fangs until 93, but I'd wear my fangs and people would make fun of me and shun me. And I made it a point to throw bigger vampire events than anybody else. So that way I could show them that the vampire community had its own magic and its own power. Now the goth and vampire scene are interchangeable in a lot of ways, but the body modification, the transformative nature of the fangs is absolutely a tool of power for someone who wears them and someone who looks at them, because you look at them and they look real. And people have questions and everybody has a vampire fetish.
All right. So, um, when it comes, oh, okay, here we go. Has creating thousands of custom fangs changed the way you think about identity and transformation as well?
Yes, creating so many fangs has been such a passion for me that I get to meet people and I bring people together. I can't tell you how many children have been born from people that met because of fangs. And I have a really funny story to share with you. Back in 2000, I think 2020, I was in, no, 2015, I was in my fang shop in New York City. And what happened was this woman came in and she says, I have a surprise for you. And I'm like, okay. She's like, it's going to be your next client. You made my fangs in 1997, and I wanted to introduce you to somebody. And I came back and got my fangs again to get them replaced because they lasted so long. And I was like, okay. And she got on the phone and she said, it's time. And a 22-year-old young girl came in, and I was like, is she goes, no, she's not yours, don't worry. But she is yours, because the night that I got my fangs made, I was driving on Route 78 out to New Jersey, and I got in a fender bender car accident, and out of the car in front of me came a guy with a pair of fangs, and I was wearing my fangs, and the coincidence was so crazy. We ended up in a relationship, and we gave birth to this young woman. And that's an example of how my fangs have brought people together. So
That's
she was
an awesome story.
So I have countless stories like that. And my book, My Vampire Adventures, which comes out this October, I'll be describing the first 10 years of my experience in the vampire community.
That's exciting. Speaking of your books, you've created some really helpful books to help people that are interested in understanding how the vampire community works. You've written The Black Veils. What are some of your hopes in regards to the future when it comes to your books and what you're wanting to manifest down the line?
Well, with Black Veils in particular, Black Veils is a collection of knowledge that I've had from multiple Fang clients. So every conversation I have with a Fang client ends up being something that's really, really, really magical, because they're excited. They're willing to get this. They want to get fangs. They want to go through the ceremony of the rites of transformation, and they want to have fun and kind of contribute to their lives. So Black Veils was composed of a bunch of notes that I took from all my conversations with my Fang clients, and I put it together into a book that people can pick and choose what they find important and empowering for them in the vampire community. I don't see the vampire as a desperate or sad thing. I see it as an exciting, thrilling, beautiful, magical, dark, erotic, and magical being. So I've always been more about the empowerment of vampires and every individual in it than trying to say I have a leaky chakra, or I'm allergic to the sun or something like that. So Black Veils is, of course, my magnum opus in many ways, and it's going to be updated next year with new information according to the movement of the vampire community. But what is also important is that My Vampire Adventures, my book, which will be my memoirs, also interviews a bunch of people that have been in the vampire community for years, and I know, and they tell their stories about the experiences that we shared. So it's kind of like a timeline of the vampire community. And the first book covers the 1990s until the nightclub Mother closed. And Mother was a wonderful place. It was a small nightclub on 14th Street and Washington Street in New York, in the meatpacking district. And being in the meatpacking district, at the end of the night, after we cleaned the bar and shut the club down, we'd walk through pig carcasses and cow carcasses through the meatpacking district, because the meatpacking was going on right in that street, and the awning outside the club was where they would hang the cows and and pork and stuff like that. And in the movie Blade, we think they got the idea from that.
So, out of curiosity, I know you have been on several ghost investigations before, but what have been some of your most interesting experiences that you've come across when you've gone on a few of them?
Well, my first experience with ghosts was when I was 6 months old, and my mother was in my living room. I was living in San Diego. My father was in the Navy at the time, and there was a tree up in front of my house, and a young boy ran through in the hallway into my bedroom, and my mom freaked out. She came up and she looked at him. She walked into my bedroom, and she saw this boy looking over my crib, and he ran out like she startled him, and he turned around and he ran through her, literally through her, and through the front door. And she opened up the door, and she saw him run behind the tree in the front yard. And she was like, "Fuck, I got to call the UCLA parapsychology organization." So she called them, and they did a ghost investigation back in the 90s. We were called parapsychologists back then. And they found out that the boy was hung by the farmer, and he thought I was his son. And he hung on the tree out. He was hung on the tree out front, and he was 14 years old when he died.
Wow.
So that was my first ghost adventure. And then I was introduced to Time Life's books called what were they called? Mysteries of the Unknown. And I read through all of them passionately about ghosts and vampires and night creatures and parapsychology and psychics and everything like that. And what I loved about it was it hit every bone, every part of my being got touched by that. And I decided to get more involved in it. And I started playing Dungeons and Dragons because it was the only thing that I could do with magic. And I was 12 when I played first edition. And I got involved in the role-playing community because there was 12-year-old kids don't really have the opportunity to read occult books like they do today. So I did that. And then when I was 16, I joined a coven called Blue Star, which was run by a lovely guy named Turtle and Cat. And that was my first Wiccan experience. And all is history from there.
That's actually pretty interesting. That's cool. When I think about the different stories that I get to hear from different people, it's always fascinating to hear people's stories.
But my most memorable ghost experience is when I was with my ex-girlfriend at the Haunted Museum, and I met Patty Negri that night. I think it was 2016 or 2017. And she was so nice, I didn't believe she was real. I thought she was faking it. And she actually ended up being a really genuine, one of the most genuine people I know. And I was investigating what Zach Baggins called Bela Lugosi's mirror. And I opened it up, and I saw basically, if you ever seen the TV show Stargate,
yeah,
looked like a wormhole coming up with koi fish swimming around in it. And I used Zach's aggressive techniques, and I spooked it, and something jumped into me. And because I have experience with being possessed, because I've been possessed twice in my life before this, I pushed it out, and I turned around, and I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and she had a scratch on her neck from where I pushed the entity out. And I passed out, and I woke up in Zach Baggins' arms. Every girl would love to do that.
Most girls, most.
Yes, most girls.
Most. So you met Pat. That's right, because I actually saw that episode recently, just because I was looking around online and saw it and thought it was pretty cool. They filmed that event, didn't they? Or didn't they film it when you were at that specific location as well? Not with your girlfriend, but the one where you met Patty Negri?
That was the same night.
That was the same night. Okay, cool.
It
Very
was the same
cool.
night, and it was a lot of fun. And Patty was great. And Patty said she met me passed out.
That's funny. So what places, and Hesperus, if you have anything, please interject. Um, but what places are places that you'd really like to investigate eventually?
I want to go to Penhurst before they turn it into a data center. That I went to boarding school in Philadelphia at the George School, Quaker boarding school, which I met my first witch girlfriend. Her name was Celine, and she wanted to go investigate Penhurst back then, and I was like too scared to do it, and now I'm regretting it because Patty's there every year. It's really cool. So I want to investigate Penhurst. I'd like to investigate some castles in France. Um, what I will tell you is the catacombs of Paris do not have any spirits. There's no entities down there. But it's really cool urban exploration.
Actually, I think you might like Wilson Castle. It's in Vermont. And I'm going to be going there for the very first time on September 4th. But it's a huge castle that's just really well known for being haunted, not just the castle itself, but like the grounds surrounding it. So might be something you might be interested in the future.
That sounds really cool. Send me a
Yeah.
link. I want to see some pictures of it.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll do that. Um,
Patty tries
so
to get me to go on so many ghost adventures. I can't keep up. But the thing is I scare away the spirits. Humans that don't react to me very well.
why do you think that is?
I don't know. I was at the what's that place where they film The Shining, the Strand.
Oh, um, I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
Um, well, I was at that hotel where they filmed The Shining in Colorado, and I walked out into their haunted area, and I was in this kind of like church type place, this chapel type place, and I saw these kids with these e-meters or whatever you call them, Geiger counter things, and they were kind of like scanning, and I can see spirits, like they're people, but they look like auras without bodies, auras without the meat, and I can see the distortion and the movement in them. And these kids were doing the things, and I'm like, turn around, it's behind you, and it went beep 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 beep, and the kid fell over, and the spirit tried to help it up because it seemed like a nice spirit, and then they just disappeared.
Are you talking about the REM pods went off? The big loud noise that always goes off when they
I
touch
don't use
them?
ghost hunting equipment. I don't need it.
Yeah. It might have been a REM pod that it might have touched at that time. Stanley Hotel. That's what you're talking
Stanley
about.
Hotel. I thought it was the
Yes.
Strand for some reason.
Mm.
The Stanley Hotel was really cool.
Yeah, I'll have
I
to
went
look
there with
and what's that?
I went there with my friend Storm.
Ah, yes. Yes. Okay.
We had
When
quite
did
an
when did
adventure
you
there.
go?
2014,
2014?
2014, 2015, somewhere around there. Come on, bring on the
Very.
question.
All right, your turn, Hesperus.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Father Sebastian, you've mentioned the importance of, in a number of your books, the importance of practical exercises. And
Correct.
that's one of the things I really appreciate about your texts is that they, so many occult tomes, you know, they're big on philosophy and big picture stuff, and then they give you nothing to actually do to empower yourself. So I really appreciate the practical exercises. But you mentioned earlier it's increasingly hard to get the current generation to engage with printed material. How do you envision communicating these practical exercises and important steps toward growth for the new generation?
Well, when I published my first book, it was more of a guide to the vampire community. It was called the Vampire Almanac. And the vampire community was in its infancy back in 1997. It wasn't very organized, and I was trying to create structure for it. But the only structure that existed was from Vampire the Masquerade. So people would be using their clan terms. I'm clan this, I'm clan that, I'm a Bruja, I'm a Tremere. And my girlfriend at the time, Luciana, in 1996, took the Vampire the Masquerade rulebook and said, Sebastian, I know you believe in this stuff, but I want to do it for real. And I want to go to a club and I want to drink a drink and I want to be wear my fangs and dress up. And I want to be beautiful and exciting and exotic and seduced and be the seducer, but I don't want to do math in a nightclub. So I was like, okay. So I took the terms from the Vampire the Masquerade and I changed them over to alternative terms that I got from the Ren Fair and like mundanes, which we now call muggles. And I took a lot of the terminology and the structure and I tried to bring it into reality. Like instead of clans, you had households. Instead of kings and queens of the vampire community, you had regents, and you have courts and houses and all that stuff. And I based it on a lot of BDSM culture because the vampire culture was being rejected by the Goths. And the vampire culture was not just rejected by the Goths, but the Goths were getting very aggressive with us. I remember when I tried to make fangs in a goth club up in Boston, the guy's like, what do you think, you're 400 years old and drink blood? And I was like, no, dude, I make plastic teeth for people that want to cosplay. And he was like, oh, well, in that case, sure. And I was like, I don't want to do business with someone like that. But I remember my first experience with a goth. It was at a supermarket in 1994. And I was in camouflage. So I was wearing khakis and a polo shirt. And I was at a supermarket and there was this young kid with his mom. And there was a goth guy with like white makeup on, sunglasses, and he had his hair spiked. He's wearing a cardigan, skinny jeans, and those pointy goth boots. And this kid goes up to him in between us and he pulls on his cardigan and he goes, are you a vampire? And he goes, no, child, I'm a goth. I'm not crazy. And then he put his glasses up, took his 6-pack of IPA and walked out the door. And I remember when in 1999, I heard about a nightclub in London called the Slime Light. And the owner of the club heard so much about me that she flew over to New York and put a suitcase on my desk, a big bag on my desk. I think it was a suitcase or a travel bag. And she pulled out 500 protest letters of people saying that they were worried the vampires were going to take over Slime Light in London. But the vampire community has kind of merged with the goth scene. And the two are fairly indistinguishable. So I've always been into the witchcraft and the occult and esoteric side of things. But in reality, the majority of the people that come to my events just want to dress up and look good and have a great time. And that's what I provide for them. I make fangs and throw places for people to wear them. So the esoteric stuff is something that I do at home in private. I do occasional rituals in a nightclub. But the thing is that that can be easily misinterpreted as something that's dark and evil. And I think the younger generation is becoming more conservative in a lot of ways, in the way that they're thinking. And when I was a liberal, I was fighting for gay rights and women's right to choose and like, you know, transgender rights and everything like that. Now the transgender people are the conservatives and the gays are the conservatives because they're so strict in their ways of doing things. And I think that's an interesting evolution from the old days. So I'm just riding the wave and seeing where it's going to go.
There has been a question that has been asked if you'll be making fangs in New Orleans at the Paracon.
Possibly. I got to see how I'm feeling.
Speaking of which, you do a lot of you go to a lot of events for charity for focuses on helping with different kinds of things. What experience, how am I going to word this? What are some of your favorite events that you've gone to that you get to introduce some of the vampire aspects into those communities too?
Well, I have an alter ego, and I run a charity called Rock to Cure Parkinson's. I got diagnosed with Parkinson's 5 years ago. 5 years ago, this month, and it's been a journey. It's been very humbling, and Parkinson's sucks. Fuck Parkinson's. But I started Rock to Cure Parkinson's because I believe that rock music can heal. It can release stress. It can reduce anxiety because you're just like, yeah, motherfucker, rock and roll. And 2 years ago, I got to go to Monsterpalooza, Son of Monsterpalooza, and I got to meet Ozzy Osbourne in a photo shoot. And it was really, really cool. And I sat down with him, and he saw my hand shaking, and he's like, "You have Parkinson's too, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Fuck those little yellow pills." And that's where Rock to Cure Parkinson's got established, was to honor Ozzy's healing and his struggle, because he has Parkinson's. He had Parkinson's, like Michael J. Fox. But it's really, really amazing to take what I've learned from running events in the vampire community and applying it to running our first music festival, the Rock to Cure Parkinson's. So that's going to be April 18th, 2027 at the Belasco in downtown LA.
I'm going to have to see if I can fly out for that one.
You'd be more than welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hesperus, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask?
Nothing is springing to mind. Are there any other charities or events you'd like to promote while we have you?
Well, we have Halloween night at the New Orleans Vampire Ball, Endless Night New Orleans Vampire Ball, which I'm really excited about because it's going to be Venetian Carnival. And a lot of people are asking, is it Carnival or is it Carnival? And I'm like, it's based on Venice's Carnival. And we're going to have different types of masks that you can wear. And it's going to be really, really awesome because New Orleans on Halloween is going to be on a Saturday this year, just the night of the ball, which I'm really excited about. And then Friday night, there's the Anne Rice Vampire Ball. And on Saturday night, there's the Endless Night Vampire Ball. And we're adding a bunch of immersive experiences in for people to the Endless Night, which I'm really excited about. We started that in 1998 So my history with the vampire community started in 1992 when I was at a LARP called Zenadria, and I was really excited to be playing it. And this woman came up to me and she said, "I'm your arch enemy for the weekend. You need to kill me by noon on Saturday because I got to go to this game in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania called Vampire the Masquerade." And I was like, "My mom told me about Anne Rice," and she's like, "This is like a live action version of Anne Rice's novels." And I killed her on Saturday morning, and I didn't get to go, but that was my introduction to Vampire the Masquerade, and I got to go to a LARP in New York City about 6 months later, and it was at a club called the Bank, and the basement of the club was the conclave where the vampires would meet, and then and you could have the club privately until 11, and then the goth club opened, and you had to enforce the masquerade, which was basically the moral of the story is that vampires can never reveal themselves to humans and let them live. So I got involved in the LARP scene because I was looking for vampires. I was looking for people that identified as vampires. And I went to the LARPs and they were great and they were really cool and the costumes were great. But it was a bunch of theater kids. And I kept looking for vampires. And my girlfriend at the time told me, she's like, "Sebastiaan, I really, really want to get fangs for prom." So I was like, I went to my grandfather and I'm like, "Grandpa, can you make me some fangs for the prom?" And he's like, "What are you, a Satanist?" And I'm like, "No, Grandpa, it's Halloween." He's like, "Halloween's in October." So my aunt told me about this doctor, this prosthodontist who wanted to make fangs in dental school. And she sent me to him and he was like, "All right, go get some samples." And I went to this one LARP in Edison, New Jersey, and on the 8th of November or the 3rd of November, I can't remember the exact date, 1993, my girlfriend Dawn and I got fangs. And it was awesome. It was by a guy named Gregor from a company called Strange Blades. And we had our fangs made and we went to the prom as vampires. So I was working in a shoe store called Wild Pairs in New Jersey at the Bridgewater Commons Mall. And I wore my fangs and a poet shirt all the time because there was 4 metalheads. There was 4 guy metalheads and a gay guy named Lou, who was our manager. And we sold the shoes that girls would wear to clubs. So they would come in and buy shoes before they would go into the city. And one night a guy came in and he saw me with my fangs. He's like, "Oh, that's so cool. Can I invite you to, do you have a fax machine?" And back then we didn't have much of internet. I had an email since 94, but he said, "Can you put your name on the guest list and come in?" And I put my name on the guest list, faxed the guest list to the place, and I went into the city that night and I got to meet the team behind running Limelight, which was a nightclub that, if you see the movie Party Monster, that was the club that all those things happened in. And I got involved in the New York City club scene. And I started running vampire LARPs in the back rooms of nightclubs, which was really cool, but it didn't really fulfill me. I love LARPing. It's a great, great sport or activity, but I wanted to find real vampires. And my quest was basically fulfilled when I went to this theater called Tony Sokol's Vampire Theater in 1994, where I met this girl named Electra. And what he did was Tony Sokol would interview people identifying as vampires and write plays on their lives. So that was my first connection with real vampires. And there was a whole subculture. And then on 1995, I was making fangs at the Dark Shadows convention in the Marriott Marquis, and this girl named Sandy came up to me dressed like Wednesday Addams, and she said, "Can you make me fangs?" And we ended up hanging out all weekend. She was really cool, and she said, "I've got 2 tickets for the Anne Rice Memnock Ball in New Orleans," and I'm like, "Are you inviting me?" And she said, "Absolutely." So we didn't see each other for a couple months, and we ended up meeting in New Orleans, and we stayed right around the corner. If you've seen the movie Interview with the Vampire, at the end of the movie, Louis goes into a movie theater, and we stayed there in the Garden District next to that movie theater in a bed and breakfast. And I got to see New Orleans and go to the Anne Rice Ball, which was the biggest event that they've ever had, with 6,000 people in the French Quarter. And I loved it so much, I was like, I got to bring this to New York. So I took the idea and I went back to New York and I threw a vampire ball on the first Sunday of February, 1996. And that evolved into Endless Night.
That's awesome. It's actually really cool to hear the story again of where everything kind of started for you. Speaking of which, what what started your path to discovery as being a vampire? Like what instigated that for you?
It goes back to my mother telling me about Anne Rice in Interview with the Vampire in the movie. And before my mom told me, oh, Tom Cruise is losing weight to be in a vampire movie called Interview with the Vampire. You should check out these novels. And I started the vampire Interview with the Vampire, and I was like, this novel sucks. I hated Interview with the Vampire. And then she's like, try the Vampire Lestat. And I read the Vampire Lestat, and I was like, now this is my style. So for years, I've been waiting for a TV show to come out called The Vampire Lestat, and I finally got my dream because I met Roland Jones, the showrunner for AMC's Interview with the Vampire, and in 2023, and I said, what the hell are you doing with Interview with the Vampire? The show, I thought the first season sucked. And he goes, I have to make Interview with the Vampire to prepare to do the Vampire Lestat properly. And I can't remake the movie because I don't have the budget. So we had to change some of the storyline up to be able to make it more modern and more connected to the real world. And he put Louis in New Orleans in the 1900s and 19 teens as a pimp, I guess. And he changed the storyline around a little bit to make it more modern. And I love the second season, but I love the Vampire Lestat because he promised he'd do that properly. And I'm not a Louis fan, I'm a Lestat fan.
Okay, why Louis over Lestat? Just curious.
Louis a whiny bitch.
Okay, fair. Speaking of movies and such things, what are some of your favorite vampire movies? Now, I've heard this before, but maybe some of our viewers may want some new recommendations to watch.
My favorite vampire movie is Vampire in Brooklyn. I love the fangs. I love the storyline of how a bunch of vampires were in Egypt and they got overthrown by the people and they moved to the Carpathian Mountains, but some moved into Africa. And Eddie Murphy did a phenomenal job acting out that character. And I love the different characters he does. My favorite line is, evil is good, evil is good. And that comes from a scene where he plays a preacher and he's getting the humans to go, evil is good. So that's my favorite vampire movie.
That's awesome. I just want to give a quick shout out to Lee Triana. Lee Triana is our CEO for All Access Network, and I believe you will be meeting her in New Orleans. So,
oh, excellent.
Yeah, she's awesome. So, okay, how about vampire music? What are some of the genres? Like we've talked about a little bit about like kinds of genres, but like specific artists, what would you recommend people listen to?
The Queen of the Damned movie sucked except for the soundtrack. That is the ultimate soundtrack. Vampire music is something that is iconic to vampire movies, or basically anything that has to do with the vampire genre. It can be rock and roll, it can be rap, it can be metal, it can be classical, it can be rock and roll. And I think the quintessential vampire band is Typo Negative with Peter Steele. And I met Peter Steele at the Bank nightclub in 1997. And he looked at me and he looked down at me because my chin got up to my head, my forehead was up at his chin. And he looked down at me and he goes, "Hi, Fang guy, how you doing?" And I just melted. It was Peter Steele, for Christ's sake. I love them.
Aw.
And then Concrete Blonde's song Bloodletting is the iconic Vampire New Orleans song. The Queen of the Dam soundtrack, the Blade soundtrack. These have all affected a young group of people of all ages. Now there's blood raves everywhere. In techno, you can have techno and all sorts of stuff. Classical, rock and roll, but I think the best vampire compilation album was the Queen of the Dam soundtrack from the Queen of the Dam 2002.
Yeah, I like that soundtrack quite a bit, actually. Yeah. Let's see here. I always have questions for you, and some of them I remember, and some of them it takes a minute to remember. If people want to reach out to you to learn more about your books, or want to just talk to you more about being a vampire and maybe other resources that you may recommend, what are the best ways for them to be able to reach out to you?
I prefer someone before they reach out to me reads my book if they're interested in vampire culture. But if they're interested in fangs, you can find me at fathersebastiaan.com and my event endlessnight.com. My website endlessnight.com is for the broader community. I think that you can find me on Instagram. That's my favorite spot to talk to people. And if you have any questions, don't feel embarrassed. Just ask away.
And go to the New Orleans Paracon because they can meet you there in person.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to saying hi to everybody and hanging out and doing some ghost hunts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with that being said, Hesperus, do you have anything else you want to add before we bring Gwen up?
Just thank you again so much for joining us and sharing so much of your experiences. I'm looking forward to that book in October.
My pleasure. And it's called My Vampire Adventures, and it was inspired by Ghost Adventures by Zach Baggins. And he gave me his blessing I can use the name Vampire Adventures.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Gwen, do you want to join us for a moment? Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Father Sebastiaan?
I see on the schedule in New Orleans, I'll be there also, so I get to meet you. So that'll be fun. But are you giving a lecture or teaching anything?
I'm teaching 2 classes and doing a lecture.
Good. Do you know what days or what times?
You got to ask Chris. I have no idea.
Okay, they're on the lists, guys. Go to the New Orleans Paracon 2026, and Lynn also, who is on the network, will be in New Orleans. Lee Triana, who's my bestie and the CEO, she'll be there. And there's several other people from the network that'll be there. We're looking forward to meeting you,
including
very much.
Including me, I'll probably end up being there.
Yeah, she'll probably come on down. That'll be fun.
Don't miss out on it, Raven.
I won't. I'll come.
I hope so.
Thank you for having me on, everyone.
Great. All right. Yes, thank you for coming on.
Rock and roll.
If you want to hold on in the back for just a minute while we finish up, that'd be great. All right, here we go. All right, guys, I'm going to let you finish it out, but that was a good show.
All right, thank you. Well, that was tons of fun, wasn't it?
That was amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you again to Father Sebastiaan for joining us, and thank you, Raven and Gwen, for that matter, for making all this happen.
And thank you for being my co-host and being a part of it. So next week, we will be back on Monday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with another special guest. With that being said, have a good night, everyone.
Sweet dreams.